Good evening and welcome to the Ham Radio Crash Course. Welcome to Saturday. Thanks for joining me. Today we got a very special live stream. We've got a panel of experts in the area of Morse code from the Long Island CW Club, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, thanks for making it out. Enjoy the memes as we get everything set up here on our end. Grab a beer too, or your favorite libation, as we continue down the road of amateur radio. I am Josh KI6NAZ. I stream every Saturday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 0100 UTC. And our goal here is to make amateur radio more inclusive, as we say, move forward with amateur radio. So we bring you different topics, different ideas, and then you can apply them in whatever it is you're doing with amateur radio and hopefully have a bit of fun. Oh yeah, we got already 137 people. It's going to be a pretty fun show. I'm glad you guys could make it. No reason to hold back. Let's cross on over here. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for joining us on a Saturday. If you could, I'd appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up as we dive forward here. I got a couple of items to talk about, and then we're going to go right into the interview. And of course, right as I go live, my show notes say, "Hey, why don't you re-authenticate and log in?" I was playing with them all day, and then they always do this. I don't know why. iCloud, what's the deal, man? Reminder, we're going to do a Discord after chat, and I think some of the folks from the Long Island CW Club who are going to be here with us talking today are going to follow us over there too. So if you have any Morse code questions, these are the experts. We're going to be taking chats, comments from the chat. We're going to do voice calls, and I've got comments, questions that came in on my Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, it would be great if you could. I'm Hosh Nasi over there as well. Hotel Oscar Sierra Hotel November Alpha Sierra India. So two things to mention. Actually, three things. So Dayton Hamvention is coming up, and from now pretty much today we're going to get the ball rolling on this until the actual Hamvention days. We're going to be talking about the events we're doing, and it's going to be a collaboration with a lot of the YouTubers. Most of them you know, the ones from the YouTubers bunch and more. We're going to be doing the meetup like we did last year, but we're going to be doing two meetups this year. There is going to be a YouTubers booth at Dayton this year that we'll be hanging out at. So you'll be able to come say hi or, ask questions or do whatever it is we're doing. And we're going to be right next to Tom, W5KUB from W5KUB.com. And so that'll be really cool because we'll be able to live stream with him. So that was going to be great. Little cool piece of info. Our Discord turned 2 years old this week, which I think is really awesome. And I think we've crossed over 6,000 members on the Discord. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us over there. If you haven't, the links for that are in the description. And that's how you get involved with our streaming after chats we do. And that's voice chat, and there's also text component to that. So lots of fun on that. And I've got a link in the description. Good Game, Ham Radio, and Bees is doing a DMR radio giveaway after he hit his 500,000 views milestone, which is, I think, is pretty cool. So go check him out. The link is in the description right to his video so you can figure out what it is to get in on that. Let's see. Let's check out the chat. Who do we got? Marvin from Indiana, what's up? Hey, Tom Rollins. Hey, Josh, late here in UK. Thanks very much for hopping on. I was just watching Cal beforehand. I tried to hear him on 40. I couldn't hear him on 40. I really wish I could. I'd love to make a contact with Cal properly over the air, not over Echolink, which was the last time we worked radio to do a contact. Let's see. Hello from Orlando, right on. Glenn Salmon, Salmon says, code my nemesis, must learn. Well, hopefully we're going to give you some tips on how to do that as well today. Let's see. Hello from KN6CPT, right on. Hey, there's Good Game, Radio and Outdoors, right on. Go check him out. Bob says, I've been licensed for 13 years, still can't afford HF. Well, we're probably going to dip into that tonight because QRP, CW only QRP, is not only cost effective, but we'll find out more about it, but it's possibly also operationally effective. So Thomas Maginot, I believe that's it. I'm probably saying that wrong. Hello from France, right on. All right. So let's see. That's pretty much all I have to before belaboring this to bring on our guests. So without further ado, let me introduce the great people that joined us from the Long Island CW Club. Let's make sure we get them all unmuted. All right.
Great.
All right, gentlemen, here we go. So real quick, I've got Jerry K2GV, Mike N2PPI, Howard WB2UZE. Howard probably looks familiar. We've done a couple of videos with Howard. And we've got Rob K2MZ, who is also a Patreon supporter of the Ham Radio Crash Course. So Rob, it's Zers, right? I had said that wrong for so long. Like barge, Zarge. It's like Zarge. That's it, right? Did I get it right?
Zarges.
Oh, Zarges. Okay. Oh man.
Got it.
I'll keep trying. All right, gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great.
Good.
So I think we're going to go around the room, give a couple of seconds there, give yourself a little introduction. Why don't we start with Mike?
Okay, I'm Mike M2PPI, based out of here in Long Island, New York, about 30 miles east of New York City. My passion is CW, collecting of old military keys. Also do a lot of outdoor activities as far as ham radio goes, QRP 200 watts. Really love to get outdoors and do some work. It's just really great.
Right on. How about Jerry? Go for it, Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry K2GV. I'm out on eastern end of Long Island and been licensed for over 40 years. Enjoy all aspects of the hobby, but primarily HF and chasing around rare D expeditions. I don't really collect paper. I just enjoy chasing them and working them.
Very good. And Rob, go for it. Or Rob, go for it.
Okay, Rob, K2MZ. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, and I've been licensed for 5 months. So I'm a newcomer to the game, but CW has been all pretty much I've done since I've got licensed, and I'm really excited about being here tonight.
We're going to talk about it later, but Rob has been an absolute monster in getting up and running in amateur radio. And last but not least, Howard, president of the Long Island CW Club. Thanks again for coming out, Howard. How are you doing?
Good evening, Josh. Howard WB2UZE. I've been a ham since 1965. That's 54 years now, and predominantly CW all the time. I have microphones here that have never been used, and some of my passions within the hobby is I like vintage gear, what we call boat anchors, and operating and CW doing DX. But most important, Josh, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you very much for having us all. You've been a great supporter to the club, a member too. If I remember correctly, you did your first CW QSO with us, which we have on video.
I did,
and,
yes.
I would like to thank you and let everybody know at Ham Radio Crash Course that through Josh's efforts and promoting our club, he's actually contributed to over 20% of the entire membership, which we have, which is now 312 members. So I really want to thank you personally for your support, Josh. Terrific.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. And guys, we're saying the Long Island CW Club, like I get on a plane and fly out there. Not the case. This is an online club, and they do all their training over Zoom for CW. And how many classes do you have a week now, Howard?
Well, it's starting next week. It'll be 26 online classes per week of different varieties.
Yeah. And key note here, everybody that we have in this room is an instructor with the Long Island CW Club. And there's a couple more, but these are CW experts. They've all been instructing people on how to become more proficient and conversationally proficient with CW. That's pretty much your charter, right, Howard?
Yes. We want to get people on the air. That's the end game.
So we have a whole bunch of questions, kind of things we worked up beforehand. We'll take live calls, and I've got some stuff, as I said, from Instagram beforehand. But we're going to try and aim this a bit for people getting started in CW, and we can go down a more advanced road, but wanted to start there. So I'll hit everybody with this first one right out. You know, when starting out in CW, are there any specific pieces of kit you think are important to have, or something that is important for somebody starting out? And anybody can take it, and if you have thoughts, we can just roll and have a little panel discussion.
Well, I guess maybe I'll take the first question, because this is an easy one. To get started with the CW Club, basically you'll need somewhere where we can hear you send. So you'll need a key, and you'll need some sort of oscillator. If you don't have an oscillator, but you have an HF rig, Then you can use the side tone on your rig. And on top of that, you'll need some programs to practice with. Our club practices in the class with the G4FON, but there's so many programs out there. As a matter of fact, we've made a compendium of all the programs and apps that people use. We have that in our database, which is open to our members, and there's scores of them. So anyone that you feel comfortable with and you'd like to use to practice with, about 15 to 20 minutes a day would be good.
Okay, right on. And so you, what was the application again?
G4FON is what we use in our classes.
And that's for, I guess, practicing for the receive side, right? Learning the actual characters, picking up the tones, right?
Right.
All right. Anybody else have a thought on that one? The kind of pieces of kit you think you need to get started in CW?
Well, also you can use many phone apps. I use CW Morse machine. It is available on Apple for iPhones and for Androids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big help in your learning. It allows you to learn the characters. It speeds you up when it feels that it needs to speed you up. It'll slow you down when you need to be slowed down. So I definitely would look into that. That would help in your learning.
Okay, right on. So I guess
maybe, Josh, Rob, what programs did you find that were most helpful for you when you were learning?
Yeah, I used what the club used, G4FON, but I also used the CW player as well. Those I found really helpful. There's the first stage is you're learning the characters, but we also recommend that you also have a key that you can also feel the characters on a straight key, so that you can start to feel the characters as much as you are hearing the characters. And you could have something as simple as this little MFJ that has the oscillator right built into it, or something like that. But whatever you have, so you can practice sending as well as learning the characters.
Right on. So that's a good segue. Obviously, to do CW, you generally want to have a key of some kind. Rob mentioned straight keys, and it was a question that came up on Instagram as well as something we all talked about. What keys do you recommend for a beginner to get started with? Maybe not necessarily a practice oscillator key, but like a physical key, something that's built of quality, that's not too expensive, but should last a decent amount of time.
Well, we get this question all the time, Josh, and we've gone through quite a few, and we've come down to cwmorse.us. cwmorse.us. It's a family-run business that does 3D printed keys, and these keys run between $24 and $50. They also have oscillators around the same price with different functions. And Mike, you have one, right?
I would love to show them, yes. So let you guys know, it's, don't always think it's so expensive to get into this stuff. I'll let you know. Now, Howard's very proficient in CW. He's probably the best guy I've ever met doing CW. And he's tried out these keys, and he'll tell you firsthand that they play very nice. So here's the straight key, very portable, great for portable operations. You can practically put this in your pocket. It's not that expensive. I mean, look how small that is. I mean, it's really amazing.
I think they sell them at HRO too, right? I think they do.
This one, they, believe it or not, they actually sell to MFJ, and MFJ sells these. If you look, there is actually an MFJ number for this, okay? But if you look in the back of the key, it'll say cwmorse.us on the MFJ key.
Ah, okay.
All right, so just so you know, they're reselling them. Now, here's the paddles real quick. Here is the paddles version of what they sell in a 3D printed form. Really, really nice. Can you guys see that all right?
It's a little dark, I think, because it's black on black with your shirt.
Okay.
Is there a light you can shine on it?
Is there a little bit better?
A little bit,
anyway.
yeah.
Okay, so that's actually the key right there. Okay.
Oh, you know what? Your monitor's on. Your monitor is blowing you out in the background. You might want to turn off that monitor behind you.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, okay. That's probably what it is. That's probably going to change your lighting considerably. Right, so while Mike's doing that, the question was, should you start out with a straight key or paddles? What do you guys recommend?
Straight key.
Straight key, absolutely.
So
why
I learned
is that?
on paddles.
Oh, Rob learned on paddles.
Want my answer on it? Do you want my answer on it?
Sure.
Because you make the code. With a straight key, you make the code. And when you make the code, you feel the code.
Ah, okay.
When you use paddles, it's automatic. It's done for you. You press one side, you get dits. You
Okay.
press another side, you get das. But you have to physically make the code with a straight key. And I swear that it helps you in your learning process to actually
Okay.
feel the characters, learn the characters.
I agree 100% with that. I learned on paddles only because that's all I had available to me when I was starting. And then when I got the straight key, it took me to another level as, really driving home in my brain what the actual characters were, because I was feeling myself send it on the straight key.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, and eventually, after you become pretty proficient on a set or a straight key, then definitely graduate to paddles. Straight key, you're kind of limited to guys that are really good, 15 to 16, 18 words a minute, whereas paddles, if you want to continue on and do some high-speed stuff like chasing DX or even high-speed rag chew eventually, then if you want to go over, say, 18 words a minute, it's much, much easier with a set of paddles and a straight key.
Oh, interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Howard.
Yeah, I agree with Jerry 100%. We all started using a straight key, and this way you get to learn timing. We're not rigid on this in the club because we get this question all the time, and I would say whatever you're more comfortable. If somebody wants to start off with a keyer and they're doing well, we're not going to say you can't do that. And in some cases where some older fellows who come to learning CW, they might have a little carpal tunnel or some arthritis in their hand, maybe they can't handle the straight key as well, then we would recommend they go into the keyer, and we've seen some improvement in some cases. So generally speaking, as a club, we recommend the straight key for all the reasons of better learning. But like Jerry said, once you want to start sending above 18 and 20 words a minute, you're going to be very tired going like this with your wrist, and it's going to hurt the next day too. So it'll be easier over 20 words a minute to be using the keyer, and that also complements head copy too.
Mm-hmm. So
once you get a keyer and you drop the pen and pencil, you're not using your hands that much anymore.
Okay. Yeah, great comment on that, because as you were talking about, if you had arthritis, Jason Jenkins said he has nerve issues with half of his hand, ring and pinky side. Should I get paddles? Is it easier on the hand? So it sounds like if you're certain medical conditions, you may want to consider paddles over a straight key. I guess it all depends, right, on the weight of the certain straight keys. Feel like nothing almost, right?
Right.
Depending on who you make them. If you're getting some Bengali, amazing, expensive straight key, that might feel different, right?
It's still more of a physical effort to pound a straight key than it is to use a set of paddles.
Okay, good point. All right.
Whatever Jason would be more comfortable with, and some people have, even if they're righties, they've converted to use their left hand if they have a problem with their right hand, and they get by using the keyer.
Right.
But also, besides that one company that CWMorse.us we recommended, you can get keys like this, which are military keys from the World War II, and after that, this is the J38. You can find these at Hamfest and online, maybe $50 to $80. Mike, don't you have a few interesting keys to show?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that when we're ready for it. I actually have I have 4 keys that I'd like to show tonight. I have a few more, but I think 4 would be pretty good for tonight with a little history behind it. So if you guys, I'm a collector of military keys. I just love it. I love the whole era, and I think a lot of that is because my Elmer was a World War II radio operator. That's how I got into ham radio. I was taught by a guy that was a radio field operator in combat, which is pretty amazing. Yeah.
Could you imagine hammering out code and with bullets flying over your head?
Oh, but the guy was great, man. He was great. God rest his soul. But he taught me a lot, and I grew from there. But let me show you a few of the keys I have, like Howard said. The simple J38. Okay, here's the J38 key. It's mounted on a board that I had. It's basically a cutting board, but it's just nice to have a handle on it. I don't know if you could see that well.
Oh no, that was, you turn that monitor off. Everything's booming in. Nice color audio, video. Great. So great.
These keys were made by several companies. This has got a patent on it, and there was a lot of companies that made these for the military. It's all the same type. It's all the same key. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a J38, and this is a favorite by ham radio operators. A lot of guys like these. They use them. You can find these at Hamfest. They come in all different conditions. I tend to look when I look for keys, I tend to look for pristine keys because for my collection. But you can get them anywhere between in a range of $50 and $125. Okay, that's a J38. And just so you know, a little history on keys is that you ever notice with military keys, they'll start with like a J38, a J37. Basically, they started all their keys out. The Signal Corps, the military Signal Corps started their keys with J1 all the way to J51. That's how they recognize their keys. So this is the J38. Okay, this is a ham favorite. Okay,
Yep.
and this is World War II. This is a World War II model. Okay, they made these between World War I and the Korean War. Just so you have a little get to. Now this baby right here is a piece to talk about. This is a J5A. I don't know if you guys can see.
Rotate that a little bit. There you go. Catch a little light on it.
Okay,
there you go. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so that's a J5A, just so you could see that.
Mm-hmm.
And this key here was made between 1918 and 1945. Okay. All right? They made these in large quantities, and it basically is a flame proof. And what makes them a flame proof is that the contacts are enclosed inside here, so if they were in explosive environments, they would not want to have a spark.
Yeah.
From down, which
right.
would make sense. Okay. All right, and I have two more that I would like to show. Okay, this one here is a Navy flame proof. If you can see that.
Yep, I actually have one of those right here.
A lot of guys have these. These things are great. They feel really good. They're nice and smooth. I own about 4 of these, and I always, when they're in good shape, I pick them up. They're really, really nice. This is also a flame proof that it's for explosive environments. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is actually I would say this was copied from a similar design that the German Luftwaffe used to have a key. They made a key. It looked similar to this. We actually copied the design. It was a really good design, so we made a copy of our own. So that's where they got the design for that. All right, that's the Navy flameproof. And here is a J37 key. I don't know if you can see that with the leg mount.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful key. I just picked this up 2 days ago. This is brand new, old stock. This was never used, never out of the box. I always look for things like this. I don't know if you can see that there. Basically, it straps onto a leg, and you can work the key, and it's locked onto your leg. What this was used for in World War II was used by bomber radio operators.
Right.
So while they were in their planes, they were actually sending code with these strapped to their legs. Really, really nice design. This was the preferred key by the Air Force. So just to let you know, this was the preferred key. One other one. This is also a J37. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is a different base. It's called a May West base. I guess you guys could figure out why they call it a May West base. Okay. But this was actually for the Signal Corps for code practicing. So when they were doing it, testing and practicing this, they would use these keys. If you look, there's 2 lines. Like these ones don't have the 2 lines. This is for a wired line instead of on a radio. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's the 3 keys that I got, the 3 military keys. I'm always looking for new military keys. If you guys have any questions on these, feel free to hit me up. I'm going to plug myself here.
Go for it.
I'm at N2PPI on Twitter. All right, you guys can look me up there. If you have any questions, you can always follow up with me. I'm always posting on there. But thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So if I can just say one thing quickly, when Mike told me about that, my dad was a World War II B-17 bomber radio operator. Now, he never talked about his war experience, but he must have had that tied to his knee, right, Mike?
Exactly. And you know what? And next time we're out, we're going to honor your dad, and we're going to put that on your knee.
That's very nice. Very kind of you. Thank you, Mike.
So let's come up to a high level for people that they're sitting there. We're talking. They're understanding kind of what Morse code is at a physical level. You got a key. It hammers out dits and dahs, and we know that those turn into letters. Why is it still a thing? Why is it important to know CW? Why do you each individually like CW? I think that might help people who are curious on why they themselves might want to learn it.
CW gets through everything.
Okay.
You're,
Explain that a
you're
little
on
bit. What does that mean?
All right. Well, I'll be for instance, you can go on HF radio and you say, oh, look at the bands. The bands are bad because you only have a microphone. You only know how to work phone on your radio.
Mm-hmm.
You go down to CW portion and you're seeing these little dits and dahs on a pan adapter, or you're hearing them. It seems to cut through a lot of the noise. It gets through a lot of the QSB type issues. I love it. It's an art. It's nostalgic, and that's why I do it. I'm strictly, believe it or not, 90% of the time I'm a straight key guy. If you want to believe that, I do use the paddles when I go after the expeditions or I go after DX. Obviously, they're racing at 25, 30 words a minute. I use the paddles, but for general conversation, I'm a straight key guy. I just like the nostalgia of it. I like the old railroad operations that they used to use them for. The Army, the Navy, the Marines. That's really why I like them. And you know what? You got, when you're a straight key operator, you have character, because your spacing and the way you send. I'll give you, for instance, when Jerry gets on the key and when he's not on his paddles and he's on a straight key, I don't even have to hear his call. If I hear the way he send, if I hear the sending, I go, that's Jerry. I mean, I just, because everybody has their own little character.
What else do you guys think about that? Like, what
Well,
would be your selling point?
If you can hear a signal, you can work it with CW because you can hear a tone. So it might be right on your noise floor, and you can still carry on a conversation with the other station. Single sideband, as you know, you got an S5, S7 noise level, and even if the guy is that strong, it's really hard to hear what he's saying to continue a QSO. So I guess you could call it weak signal. It used to be, I shouldn't even say this, but it used to be in place of FT8 because CW is very, very good for weak signal work. And there's guys that specifically work low power and weak signal stations. That's all they look for. I'll work anything I can hear, whether they're S2 or they're 30 dB over 9. I can, I have no problems. I enjoy, especially in the morning with my coffee, I enjoy a nice conversation for 15 or 20 minutes on 40 meters.
There you go.
And I might make 2 or 3 of them.
Okay, right on.
Hey, real quick to add to that, Jerry, is what about when you're sending at low power? Sending QRP, how many times have I worked you when I went down to Florida with 5 watts and a little vertical sitting in the garden, working up to New York all the time?
Yep, I worked one of our friends. It's in the club, WV2C Tony. He's in Florida, using a compromised end-fed antenna, and he was S9 on 17 meters this afternoon, and I worked him with no problem.
So you're definitely getting the most bang for your QRP watts, if you will, right, by going to CW?
Absolutely.
Takes a little bit of effort to learn it, though, right?
Sure does.
Well, so dip into that a bit. What does the club kind of support as far as learning CW?
Well, first I wanted to say
yeah, go ahead.
what I liked about CW, then we'll go
Oh,
into
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I always liked the fact that if I wanted to go on the air and I really wasn't in the mood to talk to anybody, that CW kind of like took away all my concerns and any worries I had during the day, even back when I was, a teenager. Whenever I turned on the air and I had to focus, turn on the radio and get on the air and had to focus on decoding CW in my mind, it just took away anything else. And it really was very relaxing. And that's still the way it is today. And it's like learning a language. And it's very good training for your mind. It keeps your mind very active, and we have studies that we have copies of that we keep in our club file that they've determined that learning CW really does make different pathways in your brain that you wouldn't acquire any other way. So it's kind of a healthy thing, even for older people.
Right on.
I think Rob should
yeah, what do you think, Rob?
Fix it.
Yeah, so 5.5 months ago, I didn't even know there was such a thing as called CW. I remember Morse code from high school or elementary school where you learn SOS, but that's all I knew about it. And once I started learning it, I mean, I was just fascinated to get to 40 characters as fast as I could, so I could actually communicate with somebody. And I just find it a lot like Howard. I find it cathartic. I love being at the radio with a key in hand, and just it lowers my blood pressure. It takes away the stress of the day. I spent a lot of time on my key, so I've really enjoyed it. But it's that learning that first 40 characters is the key, and then you can start to work on how you want to use your CW. And for me, I love the nostalgia of it. I love that it was used in the armed forces. I love that my grandfather was a radio operator, and I feel like I'm connected to generations of people that have used this form of communication, and I find it just really it brings so much joy to my life, and it's been surprising to me, really, how much joy I've received out of just sitting in front of a radio with a straight key or a set of paddles. But it's been a blast over the last 5 months.
So you went from no knowledge of amateur radio, and in 5 months you're an amateur extra, and now you're an instructor for the Long Island CW Club, right?
Yeah, so that sounds a little weird hearing that said about me.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's awesome,
but
man.
but it's true. So I found you, Josh. Actually, that's how it was my entree into the whole thing. I was working on some prep stuff, and I realized I didn't have any comms, and one thing led to another, and there's this guy Josh talking about ham radio, and I kind of knew about ham radio, but I didn't really know what it was or what it required, a license and all those kinds of things. But ultimately, I decided to get my license as a result of watching your shows, your live streams. The second video that I watched was the interview with Howard at Long Island CW Club, and I said, "Oh, I want to check that out." So I actually joined the Long Island CW Club before I had my license, and started learning CW. And then I got my license and got on HF. And since that time, I've just kind of pushed myself to. I said I'm going to take 6 months. I'm going to put everything that I have into learning CW, and it's panned out. And it's really it comes down to having a systematic approach to learning the characters first, and then deciding what you want to do with CW. Do you want to be a contester? Then there's that's a pathway that you would take after you know the 40 characters. Do you want to chase DX? That's another pathway. Or do you want to rag chew at 15 words a minute? Do you want to rag chew at 20 words a minute? And so all the steps that come after learning that 40 characters depends on what your interest in CW is. And for me, I like the rag chew. My goal is to be at 20 words a minute by the end of 2020. We have a class actually designed for that. We're working on speed to get up to 20 words per minute. And but I've booked 1,300 CW QSOs, since November. So I spent a little bit of time at it. So, and that's the big thing. You got to practice. You can't just, learn a letter and then sit around and not work at it. You have to actually practice, and you'll get there.
Sure.
And you may not be as psychotic about it as I am, and where you're doing it in that short of a time, but if you put the time in, you're going to learn it. And it's when I say it brings a lot of joy, I mean, Howard and I have talked about this a lot, how much joy it brings to my life. And my wife is a great support system for this. Suzanne's amazing, and she's just been supportive of the hobby as well. So hopefully that will continue.
Hey,
So
Josh.
you put yourself through CW boot camp, basically.
Yeah, I did it. Well, I had my first instructor was Jim, W6JIM. And he just kind of taught me the kind of core. Then I had another instructor that was Stan. I went to all the classes basically. So I would go anytime I was free and there was a class, I would go. Stan challenged me to get to 40 characters as fast as I could. And so I did that. And then once I had 40 characters, I said, all right, now there's options to go wherever I want with it. So yeah, I tried to do it as fast as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm. What were you going to say, Howard?
Well, I was going to say a few things. First of all, we're very proud of Rob. It's extraordinary that he took his first class on CW on October 6th before he had a license. And then by January 1st, he was an instructor. And he's teaching what we call the 2020 class, which is for everybody in that class by the end of the year, by the end of 2020, to get to 20 words a minute. It's a cute sounding name for a class. And Rob is handling that class twice a week. And so he's made extraordinary advances, 1,300 QSOs since November. I remember his first QSO when he did it with us. See, you were asking, how do we teach? We teach people so that they don't count dots and dashes.
Mm-hmm.
So we send the CW to them like fast, like 20 words a minute, but spaced out at 5 words a minute. And we have a certain order of the letters that we choose. And that's a combination of what we call the Koch and the Farnsworth method.
Mm-hmm.
That's today the preferred method to teach. So this way it prevents people from counting, and the theory is that they'll be able to copy faster speeds easier when they get the code introduced to them at faster speeds. This is the opposite of the way I learned. I learned with a 78 record, and I learned at 5 words a minute. And we can talk about how the two methods, the old and the new, have to be eventually combined anyhow. But with this type of method, we get people learning the 40 characters very quickly, and our goal is to get them on the air within 3 to 4 months of starting classes with us. We have a special QSO class of which you were in once, Josh, and there's a video on our website about this.
Mm-hmm.
And we all get on the same frequency on the air. We get on Zoom. That's our preferred video conference platform. And we're all in class, and we're all working the same station at the same time and listening. I will do the decoding to eliminate the nervousness that someone would have to do by copying code and sending at the same time, and therefore the student can practice what we call QSO protocol, or just the sending, getting to learn the timing and the fear that they have of getting on the air. We find that people have underlying fears for learning Morse code and getting on the air with it. We realize that, and we deal with that right away. So that's the theory behind the club. We teach towards the QSO, and Rob went right like a grand slam right out of the park. He didn't learn by the QSO. He just ran with the QSO. 1,300 of these things in a few months. And we have many students that we have that are doing very well, and we have 16 teachers now, and about half of them are homegrown.
So we're getting some comments in the chat. People are seemingly questions on whether it's CW or Morse code. So my understanding is Morse code is the dits and dahs that convert into a character, and CW stands for continuous wave, which is your radio just transmitting a continuous carrier, and the key is what turns that carrier on and off. Is that the correct way of thinking of that?
Absolutely. If we had to say the words Morse code every day, with every time we have to reference what we're doing,
right,
it would be very tiring. CW is a lot easier, and it's a lot easier on the air too.
Right. So for everybody that's saying you don't learn CW, you learn Morse code in the chat, calm down a little bit. It takes a long time to say Morse code. CW is 2 characters when you're actually using Morse code, so it's okay. We all know what it means.
Josh,
Right.
Josh, if you guys say, I'd like to say so, but with Rob, I mean,
Go for it.
I remember when Rob came into the school, and he was very eager to learn, and all of us here as teachers have had him in our class, and it was such a pleasure to see him grow the way he did. And believe it or not, as teachers, we get a lot out of seeing guys, do very well in learning. And it was just the greatest thing when you have a student in your class that's learning the code, and then all of a sudden you make a contact with them on the air and he sends you a card. This was the first card I got from Rob. This before he changed his call sign. So I keep this one up here with Jim, W6JIM. I have him up here also, and he's in the chat room here also listening in. So I keep all my LICW cards exposed all the time. So it was really great to see. It was really great to see that happen. And now he's just doing fantastic. Before you know it, he'll be teaching me a few tricks.
So I think just walking through the story of Rob, it answered a lot of questions that we already saw in chat. One of them was, do you have to have some basic understanding of Morse code before you come to any one of the classes? It sounds like no, not at all.
You're better off not.
Oh, okay. Why go into that? Why do people pick up bad habits learning Morse code?
I believe you do. Trying to learn when you learn the wrong way, having to come in and learn the right way, it's hard to break habits. So if you're coming in new and fresh and you want to learn, you're learning from ground zero is the best. I mean, I'll tell you, I've been a ham a long time. I learned the wrong way, and then I had to learn the right way. And when I learned the right way, I was able to excel. When I learned the wrong way, I was able to learn it, but I was only able to learn to a certain plateau, and that's it. So I had to break all those bad habits to gain ground. So I think as a newbie, getting into and learning the code from scratch, from not knowing too much about it, the best way is to learn it the right way right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Howard elaborated on that a little bit on how we do it.
Right, and I see people, they'll post on the Facebook page as example for the Ham Radio Crash Course, and they'll have a picture, of the tree with the E and the T, and then, what do you guys don't do that, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, Mike's getting shaky just thinking about it.
I found that because I used to, when I first started, I had a chart on right above my screen so I could check every time but as soon as I got beyond counting dits and das, that's when it all made sense to me, right? And so even we send at 20-word character speed with spacing at 5 words per minute, so effective speed of 5 words a minute. I found that I was able to count even at 20 words per minute, and I had to start listening at 25, 27 words a minute till I stopped counting, and then I started getting instant recognition of characters. As soon as I stopped counting dits and das, then I would hear just the sound, and the sound then was an E or sound. Well, that's a bad example because that's easy. That's a dit.
It's a
an F was a sound. It wasn't, two das and dit da, right? So once you get beyond being able to count those dits and das, I think that's when it starts to come together in a really powerful way. At least that was my experience. What do I know? I've only been around for 5 months.
Every character is a rhythm. Every character is a rhythm. Instead of a dit and a da, it's a rhythm.
Very good.
You got to hear it as a rhythm.
So it's musical to a certain degree too, right? Because it's not you got to learn the word or the letter is the way it sounds, not that it is that character.
Well, I give a perfect example. When I'm talking to you or anybody else is talking, you hear us as we're talking to you. Right. We don't break words up in syllables so you can understand what we're saying. It's the same thing. If I was talking to you in just saying any kind of word, I wouldn't break it up into 3 segments so you would understand what the word is. I would just say the word.
Yeah, right? it's an audio language. It's another language that's audio oriented. So you want to train your brain to hear a sound. So when you hear a dida, which is not really a dida, it's 2 tones. A comes to your head, and when you practice that way. Because I did the same thing. I learned my 5 words a minute back in 1978, and they taught it to us too slow. So I reached a plateau of 6 or 7 words a minute, and I got very frustrated. So I kind of ixnayed the whole thing. I went back to listening to tapes at like 15 words a minute to 20 words a minute. And all of a sudden, one day I was hearing all those sounds, and they were corresponding to letters. And then as you get more proficient and you practice, those letters will start combining, and you'll hear the easy words like the and the saw and Tom and Jack. The words will start coming together instead of letters, so you don't even have to decipher anymore. You'll get to the point where you can just jot down notes because you're hearing a conversation. But it takes a lot of practice. It is another language, and everybody does not pick it up at the same speed.
Right. And so this is, we've been hinting around it. I think it's been mentioned a couple of times. Rob obviously put the hours in, and this is something that you actually have to go out and practice, right? So you can come to the classes, but there is homework to learn this, right? To properly get it into your brain. And how do you recommend people practice? When they join the club, how do they handle that?
Well, we would recommend, and we like to see people put in about 15 to 20 minutes a day practicing. There's some people who do, some don't. We're very flexible. You can come to any of our classes, no matter what level they are. You can audit them if you feel it's a little too advanced for you. We don't have any rigid requirements. You have to do this. You see, because we feel if you're not having fun learning CW, you're not going to do it. I mean, people are busy today. There's a million other things you can do besides learning Dada. If you're not having fun, you're not going to stick with it, and you'll drop out. So we try and encourage people, and our club is more than just teaching online. We have many different activities, brick and mortar and online, and we try and make it a community where people can get friends and relate to each other, and this way you'll stick to it. But having said that, Josh, and having talked about all the methods, our club has been in existence now for a little over 2 years. And I've seen a lot of training and a lot of students learning. It all comes down to this, in my opinion. It doesn't really matter where you start. Sure, the Farnsworth method might be the best. Could you do it listening to a record like I did in 1965? Yeah, you could. What is the main thing you have to do? The end game is you've got to get on the air. Because if you don't use what you're learning, just like any language. If you took Spanish in high school and you never spoke, if you were going to a Spanish restaurant and you wanted to order something, you'd never be able to speak Spanish at all. So if you don't use the language you've learned, it's not going to be relevant, and you're not going to remember how to do it. So you got to get on the air. So we encourage everybody to get on the air. That's the end game. And even if you get on the air and you're not that good, all you have to do, really, is decode the call sign of the other station, turn on QRZ.com. The QTH and the name will be up there right away. You can follow along, double-check what you're hearing. It takes all the pressure off you. You make sure your sending's okay, where you could send what we call the QSO protocol, and you're golden. So you don't have to be nervous about that. And we train people how to do this. So the more QSOs you do, the faster and the higher your learning curve is going to be. And that's why Rob took off. It wasn't magic, and it wasn't because he spent hours and hours. I believe that if you're studying and studying and studying with apps and trying to get better and better, it's a saturation period for a lot of people. But because Rob got on the air exponentially, his CW took off in the same way. So sure, that you could learn and study, but you got to get on the air. That's the end game.
Right.
Yeah, can I say something else about that?
Yeah, go for it.
I think one of the things I love most about ham radio in general is how great the people are. I mean, just amazing human beings. Whether I was doing the sideband nets before I had all 40 characters, once I had 40 characters, I started getting on the air. And if somebody was tooling along at 15 words a minute and I was at 8 words a minute, that person slowed down to 8 words a minute and just stayed with me. And what I love about CW on the air is that there's a protocol. There's a first stage of a protocol, there's a second stage of a protocol, and then there's the goodbye. Or if you wanted to go longer, then you'd be in a rag chew. And so it was a way to get into being on the air where I knew what I was listening for, and I knew where it was going, and I was checking as I went, and people were so gracious. I was making mistake after mistake after mistake when I first got on the air. Once I realized that, one, I'm not going to drop dead if I make a mistake on air. I was like, okay. So, because my first QSO was actually by accident. I was listening to a guy in another QSO, and he finished up. He called CQ, and I answered him, but my break-in was in, and I didn't realize my break-in is because I was having the conversation along. I didn't realize my break-in was in, and then he called back, and I went, okay. I either finish this QSO or I run away and I'll never do CW again. And so I stuck in it. I was horrible. I messed up. He was gracious. He slowed down. Immediately when I finished that QSO by mistake, I got an email. He said, great job. I'm glad I was your first QSO. Give me a call. I called him on the telephone down in North Carolina. It was the most wonderful. And I was like, where else in the world do people treat each other like this except in ham radio? With stuff specifically. So I'm a big advocate for ham radio in general, but definitely the CW folks are a special lot. They are just so gracious. They're willing. They want to Elmer you on air. They will Elmer you on by email. They'll give you a call. It's just been an incredible experience for me.
That's a great story. And so everybody, just so you, if you didn't know it, when he said break in, that's where he just had the side tone. He thought he just had the side tone on the radio. So you were following along with QSOs with your side tone without transmitting, right? Is that how you were doing it to get started?
Yeah. So I would pretend like I was answering the QSO on my side.
Ah, okay.
Without transmitting, and then this time it was early in the morning. I came down and I said, all right, let me see what there I was in the middle of a QSO.
That's great.
I bet there's quite a few people who've done that accidentally, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because they'll just forget, right? And then all of a sudden it's like somebody flipped the switch and the camera's live, and you either got to go with it or you freeze, right?
Yeah, I figured if I'm not going to finish this, then I'm just going to walk away from the hobby.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really, it was like that kind of make or break moment.
You know, it's
I'm
great.
glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I stuck with it.
Rob, isn't it great when you get the first one under your belt?
Oh, when you do dit at the end, then you're just like,
you know what? We all have stories about first QSO.
Yeah.
And then I've had remember the first one.
Yeah, and I've had the joy now of 2 other members of the club to be able to be their first QSO, and so, I feel like that's a really awesome thing, and I'm just really glad. I tell Howard and Rich all the time that I'm so thankful that they started the club, and you know how I feel about you, Josh. I blowing up on your way, but between the 2 of you, that's why I'm in this hobby. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Many moons ago, when I first started, I was trying to force myself to learn this so bad. I started calling CQ, and I was sitting there going, please, nobody come back to me. Please, nobody come back. And then when somebody came back there, I went, oh, my God. But what do I do? Yeah, but once you get that first one under your belt, it's sailing from there, man.
So I know you guys, obviously you've got the amazing classes, lots of classes that you do, but I know from being a member that you actually do take this outdoors. You go out and you set up, because I want people to understand this isn't just sitting in your shack playing with military keys, but I'm sure you can take those outdoors too. You go out and you set up and you run outdoors. And we obviously said 5 watts will get you a lot further on Morse code CW than single sideband. So maybe some of you that have kind of a portable station, why don't you kind of maybe what you have, and then maybe recommend what people could use to get started if they wanted a Morse code capable CW rig for like outdoor work.
Well, they have everything from mountain toppers, Zygoot radios, which are on the cheaper end, to KX2, KX3s, which are on the more expensive ends.
Mm-hmm.
I own those radios. We've gone out in the parks many times. Howard told you I've actually worked Jim W6JIM from out in the Captree State Park, which is a POTA. I worked him out in California from New York, from Long Island. So, and that was during one of our outings, right? Right, Howard?
Yeah, there's a lot of inexpensive kit radios that are also monoband that you can build yourself. They're relatively inexpensive. If you wanted to get started, string a wire up and stay on one band.
Now, do you have any antenna recommendations that go along with that? You got a nice little tiny, for those that don't know, the Mountain Topper 3 is like the size of a deck of cards. It's tiny. And you can run it off of a 9-volt battery, although it likes 12 volts too. But do you have a light and tiny antenna that goes along with that too?
I use wires. I'm strictly a wire guy. Mm-hmm. Anywhere I can put a wire up, and either a tree. If I'm by the beach, I use a jackkite pole, a telescoping fiberglass pole, mm-hmm. and put that up. When I'm in the wintertime, when we meet up at the near the ocean, I have in my car. I have a tire mount. Mm-hmm. I made a tire mount where I can mount my the fiberglass pole up and just run a piece of wire up there. That's all I use on a 9-to-1 transformer or a 4-to-1 transformer, and they work quite well.
How many contacts you roughly get when you're just doing something that's fairly relaxed like that?
Quite a few, I would say. I fill up a lot. I could fill up a couple pages worth of contacts without a doubt.
Yeah, so I think that's important to remind people that because you don't have the same limitations of power, and Morse code will kind of get out further, or CW will get out further. You don't have the same, or you get heard by more people than single sideband, which even though there may be more people using single sideband, your kind of sphere of who can hear you and work you is much larger with CW, Morse code, right?
Well, it gets through. Obviously, there are more sideband operators than there phone operators than there are CW operators. But I will tell you, since the code requirement has gone away, which I thought was going to be a detriment to the hobby, it wasn't. There's more CW operators now than I've ever seen in the 20 years that I've been doing this. So I got to tell you, I mean, there's plenty of operators out there. And don't be discouraged, because let me tell you, there's a lot of operators, and Rob will tell you, because I got Rob involved with the SKCC, right? Remember, Rob? How many guys are scooting by at anywhere between 10 and 15 words a minute, which is nothing. And these guys will slow down for you to make contacts.
Mm-hmm.
They're a bunch of great guys. So I definitely encourage people to get out there and try, man. It's a lot of fun.
Josh, as a group, every month our club goes out to the beach and does portable operations. We just had one last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And we get between 8 and 10 guys go. If it's cold, we work out of our cars and we stream the antennas outside, or some of the antennas are mounted on the cars already. And when it's warm, we'll set up a table and, we'll bring our lunch and we'll spend a few hours down there. It's a lot of fun, and everybody loves those portable outings, as we call them. And, some of us in the club, I've been very fortunate to do portable outings at important places. When we had the national parks on the air thing that was going on a couple of years ago, we activated the White House. We were right in front of the White House in Washington, D.C., and we were the only ones who did that. And we got permission from Homeland Security there, which was pretty exciting. We set up with generators and did everything. We had Obama fly right over in his helicopter that very day when he was going up to, Martha's Vineyard. I remember that. It was very exciting. So portable operation is great, and CW is a terrific mode for that.
Mm-hmm. So,
Josh, I think it's important, though, that, I live in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is, probably 3.5 hours from Long Island where they are.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the club, too, and we have actually members all over the world. So you don't have to live on Long Island or in New York to be a member or learn CW through the Long Island CW Club. Even though I'm decided I'm going down for field day. I want to be with these guys for field day this year. But you want to be able to, no matter where you are in the world. I mean, I see David Poole, VK5PL, in the chat right now. He's from Australia. We have, I think I saw Supat earlier from Thailand. He's one of our instructors. So It's really a worldwide club. And the mediation of Zoom allows us to have relationships with people we would have never had relationships with ever in any other way. And that's been another real big benefit of this club, I think. And we have people from that, are brand new learning to people that have been operating for, 99 years now, Howard? So it's a great club to be a part of, and there's plenty information you can get online about it. But no matter what way you go about learning CW, do it, because it's a great hobby. It's a great hobby within the hobby.
Oh, very good. Well, we kind of are running out of time here. We weren't able to flip over to the call-ins because, believe it or not, my call to the call-in thing timed out because we let it sit for so long. That's my fault. I should have activated that earlier. But you guys have been hitting all the numbers with regards to all the questions I've got. I do want to flip it over really quick, because realizing that Morse code CW has existed longer than single sideband, that means that there are obviously radios that have existed well before single sideband radios, vintage radios. I know, Howard, you're kind of a boat anchor collector / expert. Are there boat anchor radios that are particularly awesome for Morse code, or have a high, they're highly sought after, but yet not too hard to find in the wild today that people might be interested in? It's kind of a weird crossover of radio collectors and Morse code enthusiasts.
Well, for a man that has boat anchors surrounding him now, and if you check out my QRZ page, WB2UZE, you'll see a good shot of the whole station. All these rigs were restored not by myself, but one of our members, Joe N2OUV, who put them all back into museum condition. So, and I'm looking right now at my original novice radio from 1965. This is the radio that my dad bought me back then. So we put this back on the air too. So to answer your question, Josh, no, the boat anchors are not better than today's radio for receiving. But
Okay.
it's like driving an old car, of which I have one too. So you're driving an old car. How does it compare to like today's Toyota? It doesn't compare.
Right.
It's not as smooth, it's not as fast, and it's not computerized. But there's something very charming and romantic about using these old tube rigs. Today's rigs, they either work or they don't because there's a board. If the board breaks down, the radio doesn't turn on. These radios can still function like at 80 or 85%, 70%, so they limp. They're like an old man. They'll still turn on, they'll still work. And you say, okay, this is not working so well today, I'll ignore it, but you can still use it. So
Okay.
they're charming and they're fun and they're vintage. Yes, there are some that are better to use than others. And let me recommend a few. For $50 to $100, you can get the old 1960s novice rigs where we were restricted to 75 watts. You get like a Heathkit DX60. You can get like a Globe Scout, a Drake 2NT. Those type of radios are an ICO 720, very good rigs, providing some of these with kits and someone put them together right. You want to get a top of the line receiver. I have one here, the Collins 75A4. Anything made by Collins was top of the line. You want to get something that's big, that's going to give you a hernia going up the spiral staircase. Then you could buy the Heathkit Marauder and Mohawk, which I have over here. So all of these things have personalities. You can read about them online as far as their pluses and minuses, but it's more of an interest for the vintage gear than whether or not it was a dynamic CW rig. The best CW rigs that people say are the old Tentex from the 1980s.
Oh.
And they're good because they're sensitive and their front ends are good. They were good for full break-in. The Corsair 1 and 2 and the Omni, those can be gotten for a couple of $100. Some people say those are the best, but they still don't compare to today's radios as far as getting through the noise and everything like that. So that's my long-winded answer to a one-sentence question.
No, I like it. I like it. Very good. Because I think it's well-rounded, right? I think people fear or people assume that Morse code is something that it's antiquated, but it's really not. It's just it's another tool in your toolbox of how you can use radio to have fun. There are certain super advantages that it provides that we've hopefully covered a bit tonight for those that are interested. Howard did send me a video. I'm going to play the video right now, and then I think I'll have you guys do your final thoughts or comments. So Howard Howard just got done telling us, hey, the new stuff is great, but then he pulls this out and sends it over to us. So I'll show the video, and then I'll let you talk about it, Howard, okay? Here we go.
Here we go, starting George Flanagan's Sparkat machine. I like the way this sounds, the way it's heating up. Here we go. I'll send a CQ.
There it is. Oh god. I love it. I love it.
So for all of you who watched my Christmas light episode, I thought that there was RFI in there.
Put my finger over there, but it's really cool.
Very good. Okay, so Howard, what is that? Where did you get that from? Oh, let me get, sorry, hold on.
This video is from today, Josh.
Uh-huh.
A friend of mine and a fantastic CW operator, an old-timer, W2KRM George in Long Island. He is a terrific historian and a keeper of radio history from the turn of the century. He's written volumes of books, and it's an amazing visit. We went over there. I went over there today with my friend, the guy who restored my boat anchors, Joe, into OUV. So he built these spark gap transmitters. He has two. This is a real spark gap transmitter. This is the type of transmitter that would have been on the Titanic, before the actual tube-driven radio waves. Those two coils are helix coils from an old transmitter. There's an oil paraffin-filled capacitor on there from the turn of the century. And although the motor is probably from an oil burner, it's not an actual spark gap motor, he's created it to create the spark gap. And these sparks were transmitted over the air, and they were down on 200-meter band, way below the AM band of today on your car radio.
Right.
And with tremendous wire antennas, they would get out all over the world, or from ship to ship, a couple of 100 miles.
Right.
So I wanted one of these things because we give presentations. And when George told me he had this for sale, I said, let's go over and see this thing. I mean, this thing is unbelievable. It's just lights up, and you actually, if you turn up the speed on the motor, you can adjust the pitch where it even sounds at a higher pitch. It's unbelievable. So
those things are extremely wide banded, right? They're like just take out massive swaths of the band that it's operating on, right?
Well, I don't think we're going to hook this up to an antenna, but we're certainly going to show it at next year's Ham Radio University in Long Island. We're going to take it to Marconi Day. Our club is going to be set up and broadcasting portable at the end of April in Babylon, Long Island, not too far from where Marconi had a school in the early 1900s. And we'll put that in the replica Mount Marconi shack that the town of Babylon built for it. So it's going to be a very interesting thing. I was ecstatic about it today.
So just to remind people, you didn't have it connected to an antenna because people are already freaking out. That's illegal. No, you had it. It was not connected on an antenna. You're good. I find that fascinating because that thing's the size of like a motor scooter. You could ride that thing around town. That's how big it is.
Well, I brought that thing in the house. It was pretty heavy, about 75 pounds. And when my wife found out that I put it into the kids' room, who just moved out last year, she went nuts. then when I showed her the video, she started to smile.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like the that style. So okay, why don't we do final thoughts or wrap up? Anything you guys wanted to say that we didn't get to? Because we had more questions, and I obviously had more Instagram questions. We got to some of them, but as I expected, we blew right through that hour without much effort. So why don't we? Whoever wants to start, go ahead, take it away.
All right, I'll start. You guys should check out our school. It's a very good teaching school, very laid back, lots of fun. You'll never feel uncomfortable coming to any class, regardless of how much you know of the code. I teach 2 classes there. I teach a CW class for beginners, a workshop for beginners, and I also teach a ham radio rag chew get together that we do CW practice a half hour into the class. So you should come check us out. We have great instructors, very laid back. Everybody's always willing to help you learn and get through your learning process. And all I can say is, whatever route you take, definitely look into doing it, and you'll reap the rewards once you put the effort in.
Very good.
Yep, it's amateur radio. We're not professionals. We don't get paid. We do it because we enjoy it and have fun. The classes are good, and we have a lot of students and instructors with a great deal of knowledge. And like myself, I pride myself on Elmering. When I came up through the hobby, I had Elmers, people that guided me and taught me and pointed me in the right direction. So I try to pass that on, as well as many of the other people in our group.
Yeah, and I'd say, no matter where you are as far as Morse code or CW is concerned, and if you're interested in it, just take the next step and start learning. Opinions are like noses. Everybody has one about what's the best way to learn. I can tell you what worked for me was this club. And if you want to know more, you know where to find us.
Well, I guess I'll take the last round here. I want to thank everybody who's helped start the Long Island CW Club and make it what it is today. Firstly, my partner, Rich K2 UPS, the co-founder who couldn't be here tonight because he drives 5,000 miles a week with UPS over the road, and he was working tonight. I want to really sincerely thank the 16 instructors that we have. I can't name you all now, but you know who you are, and you mean a lot to me, and it's the backbone of the club. We couldn't have what we have without you guys. Just in quick summary, we're going to be starting next week 26 online classes a week. Besides that, we have a number of amenities. We have an interesting website. I know the younger crowd that is part of Ham Radio Crash Course is more into like Facebook and Instagram. But if you guys want to take a moment to look at the longislandcwclub.org, this website I can't tell you how much time I spent on it, but it's full of everything to do with CW, the history of it, in the movies, interesting videos, CW back in the 1940s in the movies, very interesting pictures and links, and the Lord's Prayer in CW sent at 30 words a minute and translated at the same time. You could spend hours on it. Besides that, we have a page that lists all the CW Club amenities that we have. It describes in detail all our classes. It tells everything that we're all about. We also have a Facebook page. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. So we're in all of that too. But I think the website will tell it all. So thank you, Josh, very much for this opportunity. It's my third time that I've been together with you. I think you're doing a terrific thing for Amateur Radio Club, for amateur radio. I don't know how you do it with a full-time job, 2 kids and a life, and then cranking out over 1,000 videos, on YouTube and editing them beautifully. I mean, I really think we should all give Josh a hand.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I really like what you guys are doing, obviously, and as I expected, this went very, very quickly. That hour flew right by. So hopefully we got to a lot of questions that people had asked in previous discussions I've had on Morse code and learning the code. If we haven't hit it, post in the comments below, and I'm definitely going to have these gentlemen back on, and we will make sure we do that again. So I'm going to flip over real quick to you guys. You hang on there on the Skype. We'll talk after live. But I got to do a big thank you, also my thank you, to the patrons here. And we got one of them on the stream, actually. So thank you, Rob. So big thank you to Jason Brown, Jason Siebert, David Dancero, Danny Miller, Wesley Magyar, Barbara Schrock. 1 second, I got to flip this over. There we go. Barbara Schrock, Evan Hartman, Mark Fields, Brad Snyder, Dennis Dunderdale, Garrett Larson, 86 DM Dennis. I saw him in the chat too. The Wyoming Ham, Randall Hinsley, Dennis Mickelson, Michael Hunt, George Gaini, Andy, Kenny Miyamoto, Ron Thorson, Ken Hall, Sean Bales, KJ7ITX, Dragetshevich, Rob Zarges, like barges, got it. Devin, I've been saying that wrong for as long as he's been a patron, and I felt so bad when I figured it out. I'm sorry, Rob. Devin B. Hedge, Mark Chase, Raymond Cracker, Geraldo Kelso, Rob K8BCR, Lee Harrell, Michael Kearney, Stevie Barker, Corey Sheldon, Brad Nadow, Stephen Hunt, Carnold Carroll, Mike Marusin, Mike Kearley, Gerald Carpenter, the Brew Crew. I tapped out on my brew. I think we all had one. So thank you for the support. Stephen Hunter, Justin Rao, Stephen Carduz, Richard Smith, Hercules KC1LZR, John Flowers, Stephen Blandford, Tom Wright, Bill McCarty, Good Game Ham Radio. Go check out his contest. Link is in the description. David Gerald, Simon Deards, Nicholas Dubé, Michael Iafredo, KD9, oof, very good. Jace Ravenfield, Masi Madi, Daniel Sullivan, Michael Hunt, Jason Legg, Jonathan Williams, Andy Cowley. And yeah, thank you very much to the patrons. Thank you to the Long Island CW Club. The link is in the description. Make sure you check them out. I think some of them are going to be hopping over to the Discord, which is where I'm heading right now. So if you want to talk more about Morse code or anything really, try to keep it ham radio related, at least until later in the night when all the parents go to bed, and it's just us staying up late having some fun time talking about other things. Anyway, I am Josh, KI6NAZ. If you enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I will talk at you again soon. Take it easy. Thank you.